Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this City Club Forum. Today is the last forum in the series the City Club is presenting in partnership with the Northeast Ohio Consortium for Middle East Studies, an organization of several leading universities in the area. We welcome all of you here and those listening on WCPM 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partners are WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. Today we are honored to welcome Dr. Naif Al-Mutawa. Dr. Mutawa is a Kuwaiti clinical psychologist and creator of the 99 comic book series. The series has garnered numerous international awards and most recently recognition, including accolades from President Obama at the Presidential Summit on Entrepreneurship. Now, I would like to turn it over to Dan Malthorpe. Dan is the curator of conversations for the Civic Commons, and he will be moderating our program today. Dan?
Thank you very much, Pete. And thanks to all of you for joining us here in the City Club. Dr. Mutawa, welcome to Cleveland.
Thank you.
Birthplace of Superman. We invited you here as a result of, kind of coming across your work in both on your work that's been widely circulated on TED, the TED Global Talk that you gave a number of years ago, and different media appearances that you've done. But we wanted to start off the conversation today speaking about the intersection of religion and art, because your work definitely grows out of that, and also it has a large sprinkling of clinical psychology, which we should talk about as well. But let's start there with the religious underpinnings.
Sure. First of all, it's an honor. It's an honor to be here in Cleveland. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I'll just have a couple of slides here for you. The relationship between religion and art is one that's been there since the beginning of religion, pretty much. I mean, art definitely precedes religion. And if you think about the history of language, the Bible was in Latin for a very long time, for over 1,000 years. But all languages evolve, and the language I'm speaking now, which was known as Vulgar Latin for a very long time, English and French and Italian and Spanish, weren't really used for discourse or for intellectual conversations or for writing. It was just Latin. And as the language evolved, what happened is more and more people were disconnected from what was going on. And so during the Dark Ages, there was disconnect for people that the language they spoke didn't match the language they thought and didn't match the language that they wrote in. And what it took was King Henry VIII, who really, really, really wanted that divorce, to translate the Bible into English, and Martin Luther to translate it into German. And all of a sudden, what you had is these languages that were considered vulgar became the language that people were using. And what happened is you had a lot more people contributing to culture and arts. And from that, from the Reformation came the Renaissance. And that really never happened in my part of the world. And it didn't happen in my part of the world for a few reasons. But I think the most important reason being is that every prophet came to his people with a miracle. Moses could turn the stick into a snake because magic was a discourse in ancient Egypt. But the Prophet Muhammad's miracle when he came to Mecca, which was rife with poetry and prose, was the language that the Quran came in. And if your miracle is the language, and language evolves, what do you do? And so what we did is we came up with all kinds of rules and regulations and laws and grammar to keep the language from evolving. And we basically went to sleep because there's a huge disconnect between the language our kids learn in school and the language they actually speak at home and the language they actually write in. And so creativity becomes the experience of remembering archaic words versus actually using words that you actually use in everyday life. I'll just give you a quick story. So one of my sons, Hamid, which the table over there knows because he goes to Camp Robin Hood where I went growing up, and
one of your 5 sons.
One of my 5 sons.
To every parent listening right now, you
5 boys.
5 children.
New strategy is granddaughters. So. So I showed Hamid the Mona Lisa when he was 9 or 10 on the internet, and I said, Hamid, what do you think of this? And he said he liked the smile. It was too dark. He saw it in a Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon once. It was a 9-year-old's answer. And then I showed him a piece of art that's up on our wall, which in Kuwait, which is basically Islamic art for a long time has been just pages from the Quran. It's just, and he looked at it, and I said, "What do you think?" And he looked at it, and he didn't say anything. I said, Baba, what's wrong? You told me your opinion on the Mona Lisa, why not your opinion on this? And he said, it's the Quran, of course it's beautiful. But that's the problem. You can't even express an opinion on that piece of art. And so part of and one of the crises that we have in my part of the world, it was twofold. Number one, 80% of people pray in a language they don't understand, right? Because of the importance of Arabic as being the source for religion. So if you think about kind of the stuff that once you get to Iran and Pakistan and stuff, and then
the US.
Or the US. But the other part of it is that even within the Arab world, creativity and entrepreneurship and innovation, we talk about how we used to be. I joke and I say that my part of the world is the Al Bundy of the world because, we're still talking about what we did in high school 600 years ago, right? So.
So how do we then get to the 99 superheroes based on the 99 attributes of Allah?
So basically, what I did with the 99 is a lot of so this is the story. So basically, I'm a clinical psychologist. I trained at Bellevue with survivors of torture. Heard one too many stories of people growing up to idolize their leaders as heroes, only to be tortured by those heroes. Took a break, went to business school, and then I wanted to do...
Which is what a lot of clinical psychologists do.
Of course, in their free time. But I wanted... I'd been one of those people that kind of complained about how Islam was being represented and stuff. And the real crisis, I think, is embodied in kind of the story. So one of the hats I wear is I lecture at the medical school in Kuwait. And I give them articles from the New York Times and New York Magazine every year. This lecture is in the middle of February. It's on the biological basis of behavior. And I asked them to read out loud without the name of the city is gone and the reporter's gone, so there's no context. And the first one is about a group called the Party of God that wants to ban Valentine's Day because Valentine's a Christian saint. Red's made illegal, no red flowers that day, and boys and girls caught flirting get married off. And the second one is about a woman complaining because 6 bearded men in minivans harassed her on the street for talking to a man who's not related to her. And when I ask them where they think these things take place, the first one they always say Saudi. The second one, they're split between Saudi and Afghanistan, right? But what blows their mind each time is the first one actually takes place in India. It's the party of a Hindu god. It has nothing to do with this now. And the second one was not far from here. It's upstate New York. Okay, it's an Orthodox Jewish community. But the thing is, the thing is that the Jewish community and the Hindu community both reacted to this in a very healthy way because they both rejected this behavior. They called it Talibanization, both of them. So in other words, good Hindus and good Jews don't act this way. This is Islam's influence. But the real crisis is that my students in Kuwait said, it's us. And when a group starts to self-identify as extreme, we have a problem. And so what I wanted to do...
So you would see this again and again and again in your classes?
Yeah. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back to that same source that the bad guys have linked their messaging and create positive stuff. And the thing is that, so what I told my investors...
when did this idea occur to you?
It was the summer of 2003. I just finished all my schooling. I was in a cab.
This is a lot of schooling. I don't know if you've read his bio, but it starts with a triple major at Tufts and goes on from there.
I couldn't take breaks. There's no more camp. What can I do? But I was in a cab with my mother and my sister, and my sister turned to me and said, Naif, you told me that after school you'd go back to writing and I'd illustrate. And I said, yeah, I remember. And she said, what do you think? I said, I wanted to say shut up, but I couldn't say shut up because my mom was there. So, I mean, after I have my PhD and my MBA from Columbia, going back to writing for kids was nutty. And so I said, for me to go back, it's got to be something that has the potential of Pokemon. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
The potential of Pokemon. This is like your benchmark.
This was my benchmark. Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, it's like, no, I mean, this is, Pokemon is ridiculous. It's almost meaningless unless you're Herman Cain quoting Pokemon on the campaign trail, but which he did. I'm not making that up. But kids. I've got a 7-year-old son who loves this stuff. His classmates are all about it. Yeah, I don't understand it.
To be honest, I don't fully understand it either. But it was a good thing I said Pokemon, not some other thing, because what happened is she understood and she became quiet. And as any New York trained psychologist would, I started to free associate in the quiet. So I said, I said Pokemon. My next thought was there had been a fatwa against Pokemon. It's actually not allowed into some Muslim countries. My next thought was, my God, what's happened to Islam and who's making these random decisions for my children? My next thought was, Allah or God, and how disappointed He must be. My next thought was that Allah had 99 attributes. And ironically, by the time I got to Harrods, from Edgware Road in the cab, the idea came. And I explained to my sister. She loved it. I didn't let her draw. But I gave her a small piece of the company as a thank you for asking me the right question at the right time of my life. And I developed the pitch, and basically I told, I went to the investors.
What was the initial pitch? What did it sound like, and then how close is it to what it's become?
Pretty close. I mean, basically, I went to the investors and I said that I met. My first $1 million came from my classmates in business school, which is why I have investors from the U.S. and Mexico and China and Lebanon. I tell people of all my accomplishments, the one I'm proudest of is I'm the only Kuwaiti that went to Beirut and actually came out with money. Has never been done before. But basically, I started the pitch. I said, if you look at the superheroes that exist in the world today, they're mostly out of North America and mostly based on Judeo-Christian archetypes. And the reason for that is because there's a Western conspiracy. I'm kidding. I mean, the reason for that is the Bible is known as the greatest story ever told, right? And there are values there that all of humanity shares, irrespective of religion, irrespective of or lack thereof. And so,
well, and there are these basic narrative storylines there too. I mean, about parenthood and children, and about good and evil and exile and return, and I mean, like, they're basic human archetypes.
Absolutely. And so the Superman is an example. Superman is sent from the heavens, right? And his father says to earth, I have sent to you my only son, which is the story of Jesus. He's sent in a ship, albeit it's not a boat, it's a spaceship, by his parents to new parents.
It's a vessel.
It's a vessel. There's Moses. I mean, so you get that stuff in there, but there's no religion in the storylines. It's a secular series. And so what I told my investors is that the only
he does simply represent Superman more so than most superheroes represents goodness and I mean he's not like Batman with all of his dark evil struggles. You know, he's just good.
But even Batman, I mean, Batman, realizes to become Batman when a bat flies over his head. Another kind of metaphor for Gabriel coming down. Peter Parker's taking a photograph when the spider descends from above and gives him his message through a bite. So these archetypes weave themselves through the storytelling. And so what I told my investors is the only people using the Quran right now for these purposes have been the bad guys. Let me go in, lift some stories, secularize, and create kind of a new...
What do you mean by the bad guys?
The people who've been doing kind of very, very terrible things in the name of the religion. People who've been blowing things up and killing people and saying it's, the equivalent of Coney in the Muslim world, basically. So that's the... And so for me, as the father of 5 young sons, I get very worried about who their role models are going to be. I don't want them to reject themselves because of this kind of understanding that Islam is being linked to these things.
Talk a little bit about the Arab world and the extent of the propaganda that is used by those bad guys that you refer to. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really realize, about the Intifada album that you've spoken about.
Sure. So just as a landscape, getting stuff out. For example, our TV show, which we sold in America and we sold in the Arab world. What you get for it in the Arab world is 1/30th of what you get for it in America. So unless you're creating content that is going to be either cheap or you can't really get something. It's not a worthy investment to put money in something that's just for the Arab world when it comes to media. And so what happens in things like that is you have a lot of bacteria that crops up because you can't. So the stuff coming in from outside is dismissed as Western. And so, I mean, I'll give you an example. And this happens in all. I mean, religion is very much woven into the fabric of society, and so it's very difficult to kind of. I've had stands where I've kind of had to interfere. I sent my kids to an arts and crafts class that came back with stories from the Quran. I said, "Whoa, that's not arts and crafts." And so I went to speak to the people there, and I said, "What's going on here?" They said, "Oh, it's okay, it's from the Quran." I said, "No, it's not okay. That's not what I said my kids to do." And I'm very worried about who's sending what messages where. And you see it. I mean, Kuwait is a bit more isolated than other countries are.
But across the Arab world, I mean, I think you spoke about this in the TED talk that you gave. These the Jihadi sticker albums.
Sure.
What are those? Because that blew my mind.
Sure. So that's something. When I was raising money for the project the first time 9 years ago, I came across an article in the Washington Post about a man who was giving away these sticker albums and was selling suicide bombers stickers.
This is like when I was a kid. There were scratch and sniff stickers,
Yeah.
and we had sticker albums, and you would try to collect all of them, and you bug your parents to take you to the sticker store so you could buy more and put them in the album.
Yep.
This is like that.
This is like that.
Only with stickers with images of martyrs.
Of people who have blown themselves up. And
so targeted explicitly
to kids,
at children under 12 years old, pretty much.
Yeah, and the guy was an entrepreneur. He made the money, and he was being interviewed about kind of what he had done. And this is what I talk about, kind of the bacteria. This is the bacteria. And so how do you combat that? And the only way to combat that, I feel, I mean, it took arts and culture is what curbed the Catholic Church's extremism in the 15th century. And so it was only till the Renaissance that happened. And so the question was, how do you get that kind of culture into my part of the world? And so what I did is I kind of used the thinking behind how storylines were generated here, but applied it to my culture and created these new storylines that can't be dismissed as Western, although people have tried, and can through a secular way compete for the hearts and minds of kids who are being taught to use their religion to hate, even though religion is not part of the series.
Where do the storylines come from? And I want to come back to this idea that religion isn't part of the series, even though the 99 superheroes based on the 99 attributes, and blah 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 blah. Sure. But where do the narratives come from?
So the archetypes are from my culture. So for example, our main bad guy's name is Rugal. Why Rugal? Because Abu Rugal, or father of Rugal, is the guy who led King Abraha's army during the year of the elephant, which is the year the Prophet was born. And according to the Quran, God stopped those elephants by sending birds with stones that pelted them and stopped them dead in their tracks. Well, who stops Rugal in the 99? It's superheroes. They're not birds, but some of them fly.
They have stones.
And they have stones. And so that's kind of an example of what I've done with kind of taking stuff from the Quran. Or
we should go back and explain the stones. We haven't explained the stones.
Let's explain the stones.
So tell us the origin story of the 99.
So first I'm going to put you inside my head, but I have to warn you, it's a little bit like Hotel California. You won't be able to leave. Okay? So the idea came in the summer of 2003, and Baghdad had just fallen to America. And the thing is, growing up in that part of the world, Baghdad had fallen several times, and one of the most important ones in history is the fall of Baghdad in 1258 to the Mongols, where, according to history, the Mongols invade, they dump the books of Dar al-Hikmah library, which is a very famous library, into the Tigris, and the Tigris changes color with the amount of ink in it. I rewrote that history. I used it as a pivot. In my version, the librarians knew this was going to happen, and they got together an alchemical solution that we called King's Water, that when mixed with 99 stones, would be able to save all that culture and civilization in the books.
Where did that story come from? You just came up with it. You're just like, this is.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And then so basically, so the librarians escape. They dip the stones into the river, and they suck up all that information that we think is lost to civilization. Now, a step back, what surprises a lot of people is they assume that the books must have been just Muslim books. But they weren't. They were Jewish books and Christian books and Greek philosophers, because the caliph that set up that library had told his advisors, translate any book you can get your hands onto, and I'll pay you its weight in gold. And so basically that ink in that river that gets saved onto the 99 stones are actually the collective civilization of all people. And basically the idea of the stones has a couple of borrowed elements from Western literature. For example, King Arthur was the only one that could pull that sword out of the stone. Other people tried. Well, with the Nur stones, which is what we called them, you can't just pick up the stone and become a hero. The stone has to choose you. They're spread, so after the stones leave Baghdad, they're safe in Andalusia and Spain for 200 years, and then in 1492 they get spread all over the world. 33 get hidden on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria and are spread in this part of the world. 33 go on the Silk Road to China, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, and 33 are spread between Europe, the Middle East, and Africa.
Why did you internationalize it in that way?
A couple of reasons. Number one, I was very scared of being stopped in my part of the world. They can stop Pokemon, they can stop anything, but Pokemon did plenty fine without being allowed into Saudi, right? So that was part of it. So how do I raise money from investors and kind of minimize their risks? So I thought, if the characters are from 99 different countries and it doesn't make it into the Arab world, so what? As a business, right?
Right.
So
and there are lots of Muslims outside of Saudi Arabia
and non-Muslims.
Yeah.
I mean, the 99 is not just for a Muslim crowd. I mean, just if Batman and Superman are for a Christian crowd, then the 99 is for a Muslim crowd. But it's universal in its appeal. That was part of it, and the other part of it is basically what I say is I wanted to give the characters global legs, that if anybody wanted to take a walk with them globally, it's possible. Because the thing is, if you had only Arab heroes, once you get to Europe or Africa or Iran, who cares? And there's no market there. And this is a business that's for profit. So that was the thinking about why make it international from day one.
So then you were saying that the stones, the 99 stones, are dispersed all over the world.
Yes.
And then what happens? Fast forward to the present day, and
So basically, some of the so here's some of the characters. Actually, this is the character from Saudi and the Emirates and Hungary and so on and so forth. They're boys and girls. We never discuss their religions. Sometimes we discuss their countries because they're visiting their parents. But it doesn't matter.
And they're all young people.
They're all young, and actually, some of them are getting older. So they're in their 20s, but some of them are 8 and 9.
Uh-huh.
So some of the themes of the Arab Spring, for example, have been part of the series for 4 years. One theme is that our main bad guy, Rugal, is 500 years old and won't let go of power, for starters. The other theme is that, so in the past 500 years, for example, we have here Jabbar, who's our muscled character. He's a Saudi character today, but 200 years ago, that stone was held by a South African character. And 500 years ago, it was a Mexican character. And actually, episode 14 of the series, you see basically Rugal telling his story that back then there was no form of communication, there was no internet, there were no telephones, and so he's able to take away the stones from the characters one by one. But today it's different. Today they found each other and they're working together against him.
Interesting, interesting. So this was not an easy sell. You may have been an easy sell to your business school colleagues, and then you got some investors, but in the beginning this was not an easy sell to, in particular, to Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations.
Yes. Well, Saudi, we had an issue, and now we have an issue. And now we have an issue here in the U.S. But the issue in Saudi, basically, our distributor got ahead of himself, got so excited about the concept that when he presented the comic book series to the Ministry of Information in Saudi, he put between brackets God's 99 names. And it was like walking into a bullpen wearing red. And and of course they started looking at the material, and because they couldn't find anything, that proves that I must have hidden something somewhere. And so you got into this kind of struggle of trying to figure it out. But the irony is, what happened is, instead of I tried to deal with it, I tried to negotiate it, it didn't end up favorably. And so what I did is my second round of finance I took from an Islamic investment bank, which opened up the doors in Saudi and was used to close the door in my face in America. Because all of a sudden now my characters are studying Sharia. So it's fun stuff. But
you can't win for losing.
Well, we'll figure it out. But basically, so in Saudi, we were banned, then unbanned, then rebanned. Now we're kind of banned. But we've sold it to TV. So
what does that mean logistically? I mean, do your comic books make it into Saudi Arabia?
In English, the English ones make it because the English censor is okay with them. The English ones that are serialized, issue 1, 2, 3, 4, that one is banned because the guy who's in the magazine section of the ministry doesn't want it to go in. But we found a trick, basically, is that if you don't number the issues, like the issue you have in your hand is not numbered, it's what's called a special. That's a different censor. It goes to the book censor, not the magazine censor. That guy's okay with it. So we just...
Wow. And how are they selling?
They're okay. I mean, it's not. I mean, even they're not. I mean, I can't tell you that we're selling millions of copies in Saudi, but they're doing okay. But they're going to be on TV soon. So the TV series we sold globally, including into Saudi. So that's coming out soon. And I know that there's going to be some. It's going to come to a head again, I'm sure. But now I'm much more comfortable. When we first got banned 7 years ago, I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought we were going to go out of business. But now I'm much more comfortable about that.
But, I mean, meanwhile, while you have these struggles with Saudi Arabia, getting into Indonesia, getting into Japan, like, no problem.
In Indonesia, I mean, it was when I launched there, we had some issues, people who didn't like it, but the irony is that I got taken to a place, and this is actually in the PBS film, Wham Bam Islam, which is about the making of the 99, that came out in October. But there's a scene there, which is one of the most uncomfortable conversations of my life. But we go into this magazine, and they have pictures of Bin Laden up on covers of magazines.
What is the name of the magazine?
Sabili.
Sabili,
which means my path. Don't be scared. Don't be scared of Qaeda, stuff like this. And my heart drops. I mean, I can't leave at that point. But if I had been told what it was, I wouldn't have gone. And so I turned to the publisher and I said,
"Why were you meeting with them?"
Well, doing a book tour. Yeah. So I told the publisher, I said, I'll do this interview, but one caveat: you can't translate what I say. It's got to be Arabic or English, or I walk. And he felt insulted. And I said, listen, I have little children. I'm not going to have you translate what you think I mean, because I speak very fast.
And noticed.
Yeah. I taught New York how to speak fast. But basically, so I had it was so uncomfortable in that room that Isaac, who's the filmmaker, was asked his religion, and he said Christian. He's Jewish. He said he dropped the tribe like that. He wasn't going there.
Wow.
And but in the end, we had an interesting, lively debate, but they reviewed us positively.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that's good or bad, but and I don't know if I would have done that interview had I been told what it was, but I did it, and so it just shows that if would I do it again? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've had a lot of struggles getting into the U.S. market.
Fun stuff.
I was in this comic book store in Berkeley, California a couple months ago, and I thought, if there's a comic book store in the U.S. that has the 99, this is going to be the one. And I asked, and they're like, oh, no, we don't have them. We wish we did. We want them. We can't get them. I think they had some of the ones with the Marvel that you've done with Marvel, and you should talk about that as well. This is a big deal for the 99 to team up with the Superfriends.
So basically, the story behind that is we sold the series in America, and then it was rumored. Marvel made the world know that President Obama likes comic books, because on Inauguration Day there was a special cover of Spider-Man with Obama on the cover with him. And so they beat DC Comics. They got that word out first. And so I went to the president of DC Comics, who I know quite well. He's no longer president, actually. He stepped down last year. But Paul Levitz, and I said, Paul, Marvel beat you. Mm-hmm. But I have an idea to kind of implement the president's vision in the fictional world. And so I
Thank you for correcting me, by the way. I got Marvel and DC confused.
Oh, it's okay. I confuse them all the time. Okay. It's okay. So what happened is, I said, well, when President Obama reaches out to the Muslim world, how about having my characters reach right back out to the Justice League?
So this is when Obama spoke in Cairo before the Tahrir Square uprisings and all of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's what happened. He reaches out. We announced our collaboration, and actually 6 books came out, 4 of which have sold out in America, that have my characters working with Batman and Superman, and a Wonder Woman that found clothes in her closet for the first time in 70 years.
That's
who knew?
Was that actually a difficult negotiation to get Wonder Woman to put on clothes?
I didn't know I was going to do it. I didn't care what she was wearing. I wanted to do it. But I
assume for you to be able to sell those in Muslim countries, that would be important.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking. I was thinking about my characters get to hang out with Superman. How cool is that? I wasn't thinking Muslim countries. But basically, what happened with that is, so he reaches out to the Muslim world. Our characters reach right back out to the Justice League, and then he reaches out to me personally in that speech he gave, which was amazing. He called it the most innovative response to his Cairo speech. But as my mom taught me when I was in 1st grade, when you make friends, you inherit their enemies.
Uh-huh.
And so what happened is we started getting attacked. Obama's Muslim and this proves it. He's trying to brainwash your kids with Sharia superheroes. Stop the show before it starts. Anybody watching the show become radicalized. My favorite was, we can't let those Muslims brainwash our children like the Mexicans did with Dora the Explorer.
She's so sneaky.
I tell you. But this ended up scaring our broadcaster from actually airing the series, even though they bought and paid for the series a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And America was the first market to buy it. They haven't aired it. They've been sitting on it. And meanwhile, so they're sitting on season 1. We can't sell season 2 to anybody because season 1 hasn't been aired. And meanwhile, it started coming out in Turkey, Australia and South Africa. Public TV stations bought them, so it's like the equivalent of PBS. So it's a very kind of universalistic. My writers, are in Hollywood. Stan Berkowitz is not Italian and he's not Muslim. These are really the guys behind Star Wars and Batman Beyond and stuff. And so we got unfairly attacked. And the thing is, what happened here in America with All American Muslim, I don't know if you followed that.
Yeah.
When advertisers actually pulled out of the show.
Sure.
So that proved to our broadcaster that they did the right thing. And so it's frustrating for us because it's kind of like, wait a minute, really? This concept is about promoting tolerance and stuff, and how ironic that the far right here and the far right there have finally agreed on something, and it's to stop something that's trying to promote tolerance.
They don't like you.
Yeah, all because of camp.
Well, how have children responded to these?
Kids love this. Parents love it. The TV series.
So it's working?
It's working. The TV series, the film. which launches a TV series. Actually, we launched it at New York Film Festival. And then
So you're talking about the film Wham Bam?
No, not Wham Bam. So,
Yeah.
so we created 26 half-hour episodes, and we're now producing the second 26 half hours. And the first 4 of those 26 were written as a film for television.
Okay.
That film came out. It's come out in several film festivals. Amazing responses. Our Facebook page, which I launched in December, very obsessively. My wife was upset with me for a while because I was doing it all until I finally hired somebody to take it over. But we're now, in our region, the biggest name in media is Al Jazeera, right? So the top 3 Facebook pages in our region, number 1 is Al Jazeera, number 3 is Al Jazeera, number 2 is us. So
wow.
Yeah, and it's from, we have a lot of people from the U.S. on that page, as well as from Indonesia is our biggest place, of course. But we put up clips routinely there. We put up comic strips and stuff for people to interact with, and we get amazing feedback.
So do you actually feel that you are achieving the goal that you set out to change the way the Muslim world and children in the Muslim world see themselves and see what it means to be a good Muslim?
Let me show you kind of a slide that I'm very proud of. If you juxtapose the Newsweek of after 9/11 and the Newsweek that came out last year in one of the global issues that have our characters on the cover, that's what I want to do. And we didn't have a PR agency. We didn't pay for this. You can't pay for this, right? It's about can you get your stuff to the level where that's what's being seen in terms of the association with your culture versus that. So for me, every time something like this happens, you're doing that, and so. I believe that we've, the content is amazing. Obviously these are my kids, my characters. I'm going to say that, but it really is. I'm very proud of it, and I'm especially proud of my writers because when I write sometimes and when I speak, it's a bit dense, and they're able to take the themes and put it in a language that my kids understand, and so they can get it to my kids in a way better than I can. And I can tell you, like,
do you get to sit down with your writers and you come up with all these storylines, and you still get to do some of that work?
I have 100% creative control. I don't let go of control. I'm involved every step of the way. The writing is them. They're very talented. I get involved in the editing. I get involved in the themes. Like, I knew how season 2 was going to end halfway through season 1. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm very proud of the ending of season 2, and I'm out there raising the money. I mean, a fun story that happened 2 years ago. Again, we didn't know what was going to happen and stuff. Our main investor had just pulled out. It was a new investor, and so one of the fun things I get to do because of the recognitions that we've received is I get to go to the World Economic Forum and they pay for it, which is nice. But I cornered somebody who's the head of Abraj Capital, which is the leading private equity player in our region, and he turned me down in 2004 because it was too early for him. He turned me down in 2007 because it was too late. It's like a Three Little Bears story, right? But in 2010, I cornered him and I said, Adif, and he was with his buddies and stuff. I said, Adif, I heard you came here on a private plane. Is it true? He said, yes. Why? I said, this may be inappropriate, but can I fly back with you? And he said, you don't live in Dubai. I said, I live in Kuwait. It's an hour away. I'll figure it out. Right? He said, okay, come. So I had him and his team for 8 hours. They had nowhere to go without a parachute. And I pitched him. And they came in for 3/4 of the round. So it's still a struggle. I mean, every day is a struggle. I can't tell you of a single day where we didn't have a low right after a high. I mean, what could have possibly gone wrong? The President of the United States talks about your concept. You sold it to a U.S. broadcaster. Your characters, for the first time in almost 20 years, DC Comics allows them to interact with characters they don't own. The last time was with Spider-Man and the Marvel characters in 1996. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, well, we're finding out.
Yeah, and so it's been ups and downs. But I can tell you that the content I'm extremely proud of, and we've made on the social part of the mission, I believe that we've gone beyond my expectations. In terms of financial, the next couple of years will tell us.
The tradition at the City Club, as we've told you, and as everybody here knows, is that we turn the last half of the program over to the audience for questions, and we'll do that in just a moment. So just be thinking about questions that you might have. And while you're doing that, I'll ask you this. Now, in terms of storylines, in the 30s and 40s, Captain America and Superman were fighting Nazis. Are the 99 fighting Bashar al-Assad or anything like that? Or are they taking sides in the uprisings in the Arab Spring?
I'm not. I mean, the themes are there. I don't. As a matter of course, because what I'm doing has been so politicized by so many people. that's become kind of my political issue. So I haven't gone beyond that. Will it be done in the future? Maybe. But we're very careful. Like, for example, in the storylines, we never discuss anybody's religion. Nobody's ever seen. And one of a big almost fallout I had on one of the producers of the show is that when the writer for episode 1 came back to me with his ideas, he was going to show one of the characters praying and he was going to be a Muslim, and I was like, whoa. I was like, no. And he's like, why? We thought it would be good. I said, I'm glad that you think that. I don't want religion in my series. And even like when I was raising money the first time, this one of the people who was, thank God I had the luxury not to take his money, told me, he's like, the character is going to pray. I said, maybe, but that's between them and God. It's not going to show up in the comic book. And he's like, why? I said, because I'm not doing this for religious reasons. It's for culture. He goes, but we're all men of religion. I said, how are they going to pray? He said, the Sunni way. I said, really? What about the Shiite? Because the thing is, once you start getting into religion, you really limit who you're targeting, right? And so once you talk about values, there aren't two good people in the world that don't share the same values, irrespective of what religion or lack of religion they have.
Right. So. Right. We have questions?
Hi, Naif.
Hi, David.
I must be dense also, although a different kind of dense. Can you talk a little bit more about the pushback you're getting in America from the right? I'm not following that.
Sure. So what happened? I'll take you back to the slide that gives you a few quotes there. There's actually an excellent report called Fear Inc. that's available online. It's a 150-page report. And that report talks about how 7 foundations have funneled $42 million into the hand of 5 misinformation experts, they're called. Daniel Pipes, who came after me last week. Pamela Geller, who went after Butterball for having halal turkey.
How dare they?
I tell you. Robert Spencer, Jihad Watch, these guys. And what's surprising is when you look at, for example, their Twitter page, they have like 8,000 followers. It's like it's not Lady Gaga. It's not 50 million people coming after you. It's very limited. But they put pressure on advertisers. So what happened with All American Muslim, it was a reality TV show on the Learning Channel. It was 6 different episodes of families that happen to be Muslim, that live in Dearborn, Michigan. And so, no, it's not my show. But this is the yeah. And so what happened is that the same people who attacked us attacked them, and basically advertisers pulled out of the show as a response. And so our broadcaster was fearful that would happen to them. That's why they stopped it. But I can send you links to the people who attacked us. But basically, at the end of the day, the broadcaster doesn't want to broadcast for fear it'll cause more controversy.
What are they alleging? What are they?
That anybody watching the show will become a jihadi. I'm somehow proselytizing. I'm spreading Sharia law through my series. It's just all lies. There's no context of truth in anything that's being said.
I have a follow-up question to that, though, because I understand that broadcasters are pulling out, but back to what Dan talked about, that you couldn't find the hard copy at the store in Berkeley. There was a missing link for me there. What's going on there?
So that's not a conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy. That basically we did 1 year where we produced the comic books for the U.S. market, and we did that in 2008, I think it was. And we did it because we wanted to hook a producer. And when we did that, we stopped because we lost a lot of money. So right now, to get the comic books in America, hopefully somebody will so we've licensed it in 12 languages. At some point, somebody will license it and put it out in the U.S. market. But that's not the only things that are available here that are published by DC Comics are the crossovers, but those have mostly sold out. The ones that have our characters with Batman and Superman and stuff.
So it's not like a censorship?
That's not a censorship. No.
Thank you for explaining that. I will say, though, that you can buy them online.
Yes.
And I devoured an entire evening. I lost an entire evening to them recently. Another question?
Hi, I'm Mike Sanjacman from The Plain Dealer, and I actually write comics, so I know a lot of what you're going through. I'm still confused. Just very specifically,
Sure.
Did your books come out in the United States at any point?
Yes, for 1 year we put them out.
For 1 year. And,
Yeah.
and what company put them out?
We did. Through Diamond. Teshkil Media.
There we go. And
Yeah.
were they distributed in comic shops? Because I don't believe
Yes,
I
they
ever
were.
saw-
We gave out 2 free issues. One was called Origins, one was called First Light. And the rest you can buy for $30 on eBay. Or email me and I'll send them to you.
Okay.
But yeah, so they were out. So we put out, I think it was 9 issues. And they're very different than the Middle East issues in the sense that they were comic book sized. In the Middle East, they're like A4 size comic books. Because otherwise we would have been crowded out of the shelf space.
Sir?
Yeah.
Naif, good to see you. You said you can get to your website and you can get the comic books. Can you also get DVDs of the television shows as well?
You can get clips, not the full DVDs. But we're now negotiating an online release for it. We got the online rights back from our broadcaster, so we're now negotiating online stuff. But on the Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel, we have clips from various episodes.
Okay. Well, while you're thinking of other questions, we will. Do you have a sense that that this is going to actually be something you'll be able to continue to do for the next 5, 7, 10 years?
So, I want to. But the thing is, it's probably going to be very difficult, because if it's not shown on TV in America in the next year. So right now, for example, we're okay for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. But season 2, the writing has been done, the pre-production is almost done, the production is happening right now. And so you have basically people who've been working on your show for 3-4 years who, unless you're going to fund season 3 for them, they're going to go get other jobs and you have to start from scratch again. Mm-hmm. And so you have that on one end. On the other end, no one's going to really want to invest in this unless season 1 is showing in America. Because I think we've been able to raise money 3 times now. Mm-hmm. But now this is the promise that, is the content good enough to be bought? Yes. How do we know we've sold it? Right. But it has to be seen. So we right now, there's probably 2 ways to go forward.
The question that people want to answer is it good enough to sell advertising around?
Yeah. Or is it non-controversial enough?
Right.
Yeah. And so the thing for us right now is either we're going to become part of something bigger. For me, like I would love to do this the day I love what I do, but this is the second character universe I create, and there's more in me, but I have to get freed up. And so part of we've been talking to groups that are in this space to see if there are ways to kind of merge or work together and stuff. But yeah, I'd love to do this for the next 20 years.
Next question.
Have you had any interest from Hollywood, or from independent filmmakers, or from movie makers outside Hollywood?
I've had great mentors from Hollywood, and there was talk for a while about doing a film, but then when the attacks happened, basically what the thinking was, let's see how it does on TV before actually taking it to film. So that kind of has been delayed, but I still get really amazing mentoring from some big names there. So.
You talked about the ironic alignment of the far right in both, say, Saudi or in the U.S. From the marketing perspective, not really political, but do you notice that those two are over time neutralizing one another and actually serving in your favor?
I don't know. The thing is that people, if you're doing an adult show that's geared for an over 13 crowd and you get controversy, that's a good thing. But we do something for little kids and it becomes controversial. Then it's I don't want my kids watching a controversial show, right? And so that's where it's going to hurt us. But the 2 groups that have attacked us basically want to control what Islam means. Even the guys here, they wanted to mean the bad things that and the guys there wanted to measure it by things that they can observe, And so this is the irony is that we never mention religion in the series once.
It is true, but you have, in your marketing of it, and the title of the TED Talk is Islamic superheroes, right?
It's inspired by Islam.
Superheroes inspired by Islam, and so there is this link. There's a strong link. This way, I'm taking a guess here that you would consider yourself a religious moderate, or something like that. But I'm moderate in my practice of religion, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I never describe myself in religious terms. So but you are a Muslim.
I am Muslim, yes.
And is it completely frustrating to you to see the religion that you practice be represented in, be controlled in a certain way and then misrepresented by other people in another way?
Yeah, it is frustrating. At the same time, it's different now because I'm actually doing something about it. Uh-huh. Back in the day, back 10 years ago, stuff, I was just frustrated and angry, and then finally I was like, you know what? If you're not going to do something about this, who is? And so this was my method. How it's the oldest archetype in the book, right? A man with a white beard holding up a book. It's a comic book, but but yeah, I worry about my kids. I worry about kind of because growing up for me, Islam was very much in black and white terms, and I don't do black and white. So I wasn't really interested in the religion. And I was 19, and this imam, when I was in college in Boston, he was at the Harvard Divinity School, changed my life with something very simple. He said, if you ask me if usury or paying interest, whatever, is haram, is against Islam, I would tell you yes, and I'd quote you chapter and verse from the Quran. And then he said this. He said, but if I didn't pay interest on my car loan, I couldn't be here today to talk to you about Islam. And I was like, oh my God, there's a gray area. No one told me about the gray area. And that, as simple as that story is, it completely changed and brought me closer to my religion, but Islam my way.
Because you realized that you could practice without having to obey these extremists over here.
And what I told what I told the guys in Indonesia, these extremists at the magazine, because they brought in 3 Sharia guys who spoke better Arabic than I ever will, even though they grew up in Indonesia. And they, one of them was saying stuff like, they're criticizing stuff, and I said, listen, I said, I remember growing up in school that God created the heavens. Was it 3 levels, 4 levels? Knowing the answer was 7. And so one of them said, 7. He got me, right? And they're looking at each other, and I said, you can have the 7th level all to yourself. Let us compete for the other 6. You don't need an A+ to graduate from school, and you don't need an A+ to get into heaven, right? And that's been kind of my message to the kids in my region. Is kind of you know the absolute. Not the relative is up to you, and you make your own decisions. And so that's what I'm hoping for my kids come back to me with stuff from school that is just I want to pull somebody's hair out, but I don't want them to be the weird kids in school whose dad has the weird theories either. So you have to kind of try to kind of just say, okay, we'll talk about that when you're older. Yeah, because you can't, because one of them, because the Bible doesn't make sense, and I'm thinking, you're right, because this is somebody's interpretation, and but you can't. You're not in a system where that's really rewarded. So you kind of have to drink the Kool-Aid for a while and finish school, and then kind of create comic book superheroes and get back at them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have an answer to this, because this concept seems pretty unique to me. But who do you see as your main business competition, if anybody?
That's a great question. I think with media, there really is no competition because the more the merrier, right? And the more you're able to make the space safe for others to come in, the bigger the market. They say there can't be a Coke without Pepsi. There can't, So I don't. But right now, I started doing this 9 years ago. People have come and gone. I've been pretty successful at raising money for the project, which is probably why I'm still around. Hitchhiking on private airplanes and the such. But that's yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
What has been the European or even Latin American sentiment to these comics?
Well, my first award was from Brazil, with a comics festival in Recife. And we sold it to a South American distributor who's going to be putting it on various channels there. Our Facebook page, one of the top 20 countries on Facebook is Peru. I don't know how that happened, but it's there between Saudi and Indonesia and Peru. And I think there's one more Latin American country. I don't remember which one, but even the Facebook page, we have nothing on Spanish in there. But I guess comics are big. And we introduced actually the Brazilian member of the, because they're from 99 different countries, so we introduced the Brazilian member of the 99 in the series of Superman and Batman. And he's our environmental member of the 99.
What's his power?
He's able to kind of anything to do with the environment. He can make things grow. He can do stuff like that. But the idea for him came when we launched our theme park in Kuwait in 2009. It was trashed. I'm talking about like trash everywhere, and that was like, we need an environmental member of the 99. So he became the one from Brazil who was introduced as Superman. But that's how the idea came, because these people trashed the theme park.
Huh. So. What about in Europe?
Europe, we've only sold it in Ireland and Turkey so far. So the series has been sold, so in terms of comic books, we sold it the French rights. In terms of the TV series, we sold Ireland and Turkey. The rest of the world, we sold North America here in the US, South America sold, South Africa sold, Middle East, North Africa sold, throughout Asia sold on Cartoon Network. So we'll be in around 70 countries by end of summer.
That's great.
It's great, but the US is still a very important part of it.
Yeah. helps a lot of things come together. Go ahead.
If you can talk a little bit about the theme park development and the reaction in the Arab world to that, and maybe address a little bit the development of your religious tolerance.
Of my religious tolerance? So my religious tolerance happened, I think, in 1979. My parents made the biggest mistake of their lifetime, because in 19, we all make mistakes as parents, but theirs was huge. They accidentally sent me to a Jewish summer camp. It's a true story. And I didn't figure out till 6 or 7 years into it. And then I
6 or 7 years it took you to realize?
Yeah. And I was the only one that kept kosher. How was I going to know? And then actually my boys go there now.
This is Camp Robin
Camp Robin Hood in New Hampshire. And that's when, I kind of, I never told my parents until years later, because I was afraid they wouldn't let me go back. And so I had an amazing experience kind of interacting. I spent my summers in New Hampshire at Camp Robin Hood and spent my years during the whole oil tanker crisis and the Iran-Iraq War and the Intifada and stuff in Kuwait. So kind of, understanding and balancing and both sides of that coin. But my
what did that religious experience, I mean, you said it took you a while to understand, but I would imagine that you realized pretty early on that a lot of the kids there were Jewish and you weren't. And
they're from Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and actually the owners of Camp are from, they're both here, the previous owners when I was there and the present owners. It was never an issue. I didn't feel like I was different at camp. I just felt like anybody else. But this is Kuwait pre-satellite television, and Scott was a camper when I was there, and pre-satellite TV in Kuwait, where on a good day when it wasn't dusty, you can catch maybe the Iraqi TV channel or the one from the Emirates, and so the kids, you can tell from my height and weight what I must look like when I was 8. I was like a box, so the kids would make me point up to the sky and say, "Boss, boss, the plane, the plane." And I had no idea what that was. So and then in terms of the theme park, that was basically there was so what happened is there was a huge demand that happened that Dubai created. Dubai never ended up doing anything, but they bought all the rights from every character universe except ours. So they became this kind of, we were not bought yet, but everybody else was bought. So this Kuwaiti developer said, "We want to buy your rights for the theme park." And we said, "Okay." And so they have 6 parks in the region. So what we did is we rebranded their existing park as the 99 Village Theme Park. It's maybe 50, 60 miles south of the Iraqi border. It's a very conservative part of Kuwait, very conservative. But up there on the wall are superheroes from different countries. And kids learn kind of vicariously tolerance. But the theme park, we have, I think it's around 300 to 350,000 visitors a year. It's not Disneyland. But for us, because it's a license, it's fantastic. We just actually sold a license to a Kuwaiti bank. The 99 ATM cards are coming out soon. They say they're for kids, but I'm going to get one.
You should. Real quick, though, could you talk a little bit about what the actual superpowers are that these superheroes have? Sure. Jabbar the Powerful, he looks like the Hulk. Great, we got that. But the others are a little bit more nuanced.
So basically, they're based on the 99 attributes of Allah in the Quran, right? So things like generosity and wisdom and foresight, so there's a yin and a yang.
Super generous. I give away everything. What?
Well, what happens is this. So we just introduced the Syrian member of the 99, which is the one that represents mercy, because Syria needs a lot of mercy today. But basically, what we do is we send her on missions with Mumita, the destroyer, the fighting character. So it's a way to average it out. So in the world of the 99, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your religion is, if you're a boy or girl. All that matters is the power you have, and if it can work in solving the particular problem at hand. And so that's where, in a neutral way, we talk about things to do with tolerance. So you don't have to tolerate. So for example, issue 10 of the comic books, Jabbar the Powerful is upset because he wanted to use his muscles to beat the bad guy. But Widad from the Philippines solves the same problem using love. And he gets upset. He's not upset because he's Saudi and she's Filipino. He's upset because she got to use her power, he didn't get to use his. And that's how they navigate each other's differences. But the powers like Inura uses light, Jama is our technology character, he can put things together. And they all have their faults. So they all have, not faults as in they're not perfect. They all have, like a la Batman, they all have issues.
But they work best when they work together.
In teams of 3.
Okay. Another question?
Yes, the theme park makes me think of other merchandising. Can you buy backpacks and lunch boxes with these characters?
Well, I can show you right here that you can in Spain and Turkey. So we've sold rights in Spain and Turkey for back-to-school products, but that's all pre-animation. Now when the animation comes out, we're expecting more pickup on stuff. But in Turkey, we've sold the TV show, we sold the back-to-school license, and we sold the comic book rights. So Turkey is the market that has the most, outside of Kuwait, that has the most stuff going in it right now for us.
So if I want to encourage somebody to start showing the 99 to my children on my cable, on my television, how do I do that? I would maybe write to the channel that bought it, say, hey, we want the 99. It's a channel called The Hub. It's a joint venture between Discovery and Hasbro. And actually, the CEO of the channel was a mentor to me before she became CEO. She helped me develop the show, and then she bought the show when she became CEO because she knew what she was buying. And they helped us develop season 2. So it's not them. They know what they bought. They were involved in creating it. But it's the owners, and she's a mentor to me, but she's also a professional. She's not going to tell me who exactly is causing the problem, but somebody's nervous. People get nervous. Dr. Naif Al-Mutawa, we're going to hand it over to Pete Moore to wrap us up.
Thank you.
Today at the City Club, we've been listening to a special program featuring Dr. Naif Al-Mutawa, creator of the 99, and moderated by Dan Malthorpe of the Civic Commons. Thank you, Naif. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This program is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.